ask you a very, very important question. What comes to mind? I mean, you might not know, but let's just look at it from a general perspective. What comes to mind when many people think mental health in Nigeria? I hate to say the word, but I've actually heard this before. Madness. Lack of intelligence, stigma maybe. Now, mental health in Nigeria has been associated with lots of negative things, and this has now created a system where people do not feel comfortable talking about it because you're thinking, what would they say? Now, let me tell you what they would say. In December 2020, a Nigerian lady who goes by the name Ohirenwa Igiwa wrote an open letter to her father, and a very popular pastor in Nigeria as well, for allegedly, repeatedly raping her when she was 7. She was 7 years old at the time, and then after writing this letter, she committed suicide. Now, the social experiment that we've all seen, we're still debating whether or not it is real, blue therapy, which has been watched by millions, has also acted, whether or not it's real, as some type of trigger in starting conversations on the idea of male masculinity, especially for an African man, and the role of a provider and its possible negative effect on his partner being his woman. Another conversation that most people don't want to have. Then, of course, we have cyberbullying. We just saw two Nigerian celebrities, Tiwa Savage Shay, who in their own way, as much as one might say, she hurt me, no, she hurt me first, use social media and its influence to hurt each other in ways that has now created a ripple effect, giving fans an avenue for cyberbullying. So the question is, can we really start having those uncomfortable conversations? Well, on Arise 360 today, we intend to. Joining us now to speak on these issues as it relates to mental health in Nigeria is Chime Asonye, a lawyer and development practitioner whose work focuses on frontiers policy changes. Currently, he serves as the founder of the Nigerian Mental Health, an online community of leading practitioners in the field. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I think it's about time we had this conversation. I always felt like it's mental health. I know what it's about. You know, I talk about it. I advocate for positive mental health. But I realize it's easier said than actually done. So let's begin with this. How sensitive are we to mental health in Nigeria? How sensitive are we to that?
We are very sensitive to it.
Insensitive or sensitive?
We're very sensitive.
Okay.
It's a sensitive subject, let me put it like that. Mental health is a taboo subject because, like you said, it's stigmatized. People think that you're mad. People associate it with just one type of cause. So for instance, alcoholism, etc. So when we think about it, even right now, you might say you might have mental health and substance abuse. Those ideas are constantly linked. We have the Nigerian mental health law that is currently being debated. And one of the provisions has to do with mental health and substance abuse. So again, linking those ideas together. And in studies, they've actually said that most people associate the causes of mental health with madness, etc. So it's a taboo subject. We don't want to talk about it. And that's actually the reason why I started Nigerian Mental Health. It was hard for me to discuss. So I said that let me get other individuals who are like-minded, involved in the industries to make it even easy for me to discuss it. So we can share resources, we can share information, we can amplify each other's efforts, and hopefully we can start a broader conversation in the country.
That's essential. Now, I would say for me, I strongly believe that the culture that we have in Nigeria is one of the reasons why we may not be so positive and enlightened as well when we're discussing mental health. You just said something very significant, that the fact that mental health is often associated with substance abuse. Would you say there is definitely always a correlation? Like someone who has that, definitely you have to be doing something wrong.
Not at all. There's so many issues, there's so many reasons why people can have mental health challenges, right? It could be traumatic events in their life cause it. It could be like whether it's a divorce or a bad breakup, right? It could be gender in some components. There was actually a study by the Kaiser Family Foundation, and it said that women have more worry and stress related to COVID than men do. So there are some gender reasons for why people can have mental issues. There could be issues of abuse. You discussed it in your opening also. Somebody was repeatedly attacked when they're younger, and that caused a history of abuse, et cetera, like that. So there's a lot of variety of factors. It doesn't have to do with overdosing or drugs or anything like that. There could be a lot of triggers for people.
Okay, now I'd like to pick on the gender trigger. I would say that I was incredibly heartbroken when I learned that it was fake. But I definitely watched Blue Therapy too. And I think a lot of people did as well. I remember talking about it on the show and What's Trending, and I remember how many reactions I got to that, which is why I also felt it was necessary to bring up one of the triggers from that entire social experiment, which was Paul's character, because I'm going to say Paul's character.
All the ladies are against Paul.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah,
Now,
sure.
for people who haven't seen it, Paul's character is the embodiment of masculinity and the pressure to be the provider as an African man, you know? And I don't have a problem with that. Let me just put that out there. You know, as a man, you're meant to be strong. You're meant to be the provider. You know, you're meant to be this. You're meant to be that. There's no negotiation whatsoever. This is who you're born to be. You can't deviate. Otherwise, you've really, really ruined, you know, the entire legacy of all the African men in the world.
Unfortunately.
So, first question is, should there be any pressure? You know, should that be pressure? And then again, should we be much more sensitive towards men? Because a lot of times they even feel fear, as we saw with Paul, talking about that, you know?
See, there's two things. So for people who don't know about Blue Therapy, right? There was two couples. And the question about provider was not just a question for Paul, but in the other relationship too.
Yeah.
Because the lady often mentioned that she wanted her man to also be a provider, and that was what was important. So in both relationships, the question of a male figure and male masculinity was present. Now, I would say we have those pressures, but I think Paul's a case study of why these issues are hard to talk about, right? He has the provider mentality, but when it comes to other vulnerable moments, like she said, like his partner in the case was wanted to have an abortion, and he couldn't talk about it because he was supposed to just be the provider. He was supposed to resolve this issue and move forward. The problem is that when we have these kind of things, we have trauma. Right? Paul, you can see it in he has trauma from his experiences, from how culture has indoctrinated him. And his partner also had the trauma, and it was unresolved. That's not good for relationships. That's not good for sustainability. I think that as men, we need to have these kind of conversations, and we don't have these kind of conversations at all. We're just told, you know, you have to do X, you have to provide Y, etc. So we need to have these conversations. And for now, I would just say that if we don't have these spaces and we don't make mental health something that is cool, something that we can discuss, something that we understand everybody has, then we're not going to see change. So we need celebrities, right? We're seeing it more in the West, for instance.
Yeah.
We need even the president, right? We need the government to be comfortable talking about challenges and issues. If we don't have that, then I think that we need to be okay to critique each other and get better. If we don't have that, we're going to continue to have these cycles that perpetuate.
Exactly. So basically, critique that is not detrimental, or critique that is not like, I'm going to criticize you and you're gone and dead and dusted. Critique that is, you know, positive and, you know, constructive rather. Now let's talk about the rise in issues of depression as well. I mean, in my intro there, that was a story that happened in December, and I think for a while I struggled with how I wanted to approach it. The young lady who killed herself, and speaking to people about her, was that she had been speaking about her struggle with depression for a while, and there was no kind of support. And now that it's ended with a suicide, everyone is talking about it, everyone's showing remorse. So that's another thing. What is the best way to react when a person comes to you and tells you, I'm depressed?
Well, I think that the thing is that it's actually good that they recognize that there's an issue they're facing. They want to name it depression. Maybe it's not depression, etc. The first thing I would say is that if somebody is depressed, if they feel like that, the terminal impact could be suicide, right? Which is horrible for other people, and it creates more trauma because you have those traumatic events that cause alienation, cause sadness and frustration. So I would say that one of the first things you do is be empathetic to them, right? Don't try to preach at them. Don't try to give advice to them. Just hear them out. Listen to them, because I think one of the things is that they're trying to get this feeling. It's a cry for help. They want you to just share some of your thoughts of some of their challenges. So be empathetic, be listening, try to hear their perspective. Don't necessarily advise them. Just, you can give them a perspective, but don't say this is what you must do. I'd say this first thing. The second thing is that there's some resources that are out there. There's a lot of amazing organizations that are represented in Nigerian mental health that they can go out to. She Writes Women is an organization. They have counselors there. There's Mentally Aware. There's Assad. There's so many organizations that you can reach out to. Even the government had started something where if you call yes, in Abuja, in FCT, if people dial 112, they're supposed to be connected with a counselor. Hopefully programs like that can foster and be elsewhere, etc. I think that we need to provide it as a resource, right? Right now, if you go to a clinic, in most hospitals in Nigeria, you can get HIV testing for free. We should be thinking about how we can have a counselor on hand at primary and medical institutions where if you are depressed, you can go and see a counselor for free and they can talk to you about what some of your challenges are. So, but I would also caution people, you can't self-diagnose yourself with depression. And this is really important. So that's why I said they say they're depressed, but they may not be depressed. They might have bipolar. They might have mood swings, right? And depression can look very different. And if they think that they're depressed and they start getting medication or therapies based on that, they could be treating the symptom rather than the cause, right? Because for instance, depression has mood swings, and if you have a mood swing, that might be bipolar, it might not be depression. So go to a mental health professional or physician, let them give you the proper treatment, etc. But it's okay to assess yourself, right? There's some self-diagnosis, but make sure that you ultimately, if you have a diagnosis, go to a medical professional.
Don't just, so basically two things I've gotten from what you just said. One is the worst thing to tell a person who's depressed is, well, you have such a perfect life now. Why are you feeling some way? And the second thing is you cannot self-diagnose. So that is a very essential thing. Now, before we wrap this up quickly, I want us to just touch on the issue of cyberbullying, which from what we saw, now that situation with Shay and Tiwa Savage, irrespective of what caused it, who was right, who was wrong, I looked at the bigger picture and saw that I saw two divides being created, two fan bases being created, and them coming at each other. So Tiwa's fan base going on Shay's Instagram, insulting, people saying the meanest things I've ever seen. And then the same goes the other way as well. If you read the comments underneath some of these fights, you will just, I'm like, if someone said this about me, oh my goodness.
You crawl up to a ball.
People saying things to Shay. I mean, Shay mentioned the fact that she had a miscarriage, and then people making jokes about that. Like, that is so mean. So let's talk about cyberbullying and how celebrities play a huge role in either encouraging or discouraging that.
See, that's why I call artists and celebrities the fourth estate. I think that you think about government, you think about business. For me, in Nigeria, celebrities are the next big thing, and they have a unique responsibility. They can be the ones leading for social justice, or they can be cultivating bad behavior amongst their fans. So you see that this thing happening with Tiwa Savage and Shay. I'm not going to say what side of the fence I'm on because I love both beautiful ladies, but I think that it's important for us to understand that these are some of the most gifted women of our generation, right? Why are they fighting? We as a community and a continent need to come together. We need to be pushing Afro beats and music, etc. We shouldn't have these individuals fighting.
Well, let me just ask you a quick question, because we've got to wrap this up soon. But what if I'm hurt? Because people keep saying, well, you should be ready to take it if you say something about other, airing your frustrations. What about that? No, because you don't know how things impact people. Tiwa Savage, when she had her interview with Ebuka, said that what Shay did with and then the other singer who did diss songs, etc. Yeah, that it really got to her. She didn't really understand, because it's the things, people who are close to you that get to you, or the people who are in your same theme. So you never really know what you're gonna say impacts people. So we have to exercise caution, and then we need our celebrities to make sure they set a good example for us, right? Because people watch what they do, fortunately or unfortunately, and I think that it's beholden of big mentors there to try to bring them together and say we need to put this beef aside, not only for us but for others. Exactly, especially the fans. Well, Chime, this has been such an enlightening conversation. I'm so glad that we had you on Arise 360 today. Yes, thank you.